In the quiet strength of her voice and the clarity of her memory, Dame Marguerite Pindling takes us back to a defining moment in Bahamian history. Black Tuesday, April 27th, 1965. It was a bold act that shocked the nation and changed the course of Bahamian history forever. On April 27, 1965, opposition leader Marguerite Pindling stood in the House of Assembly and, in a dramatic gesture, a protest threw the Speaker's mace, the parliamentary symbol of authority, out of the window and onto Bay Street. The move was in defiance of what many saw as political gerrymandering by the then ruling United Bahamian Party, an attempt to suppress the voice and vote of the majority Bahamian population. Now, what followed became known as Black Tuesday, a turning point in the Bahamas' fight for majority rule and a spark that ignited a new political consciousness across the country. Today, nearly 60 years later, we reflect on that day through the eyes of someone who lived it, not just as a bystander, but as a wife, a partner, and a pillar beside the man leading the charge. We're joined today by Dame Marguerite Pindling, wife of the late Marguerite Pindling, to share her memories of that moment and the movement that followed.
Myself, Beryl Hannah, and I think it was Cecil Wallace Whitfield's wife. I think Mrs. Jones Stevenson, I'm not too sure. Were in Parliament Street, and we were told to remain there in the hopes that we might be able to take messages to and from the leader in the House, from the chairman, Cecil Wallace Whitfield, who was the chairman at that time. He was in charge of the ground. And of course, and we were told to remain there in case we'd have to run quick errands. And Mrs. Esther Ambrista was also a gopher. She used to us in Parliament Street, to the women sitting in the street, in Bay Street, letting us know the mood of the people and how much longer we could keep them as quiet as they really are right now. But at one point, they were getting a little antsy, then it started to rain, and that really turned things, Bahamians scared of rain. But we managed to sing there should be showers of blessing until we were able to calm them down. But the throwing out of the mace, that was the best. You thought Inago was the best kept secret? The throwing out of the mace of the House of Assembly was the best kept secret. My husband even talking in his sleep, so I didn't hear nothing.
You had no clue?
Not a clue. But there was whispers on the street, because we would get news out somehow. Don't you tell anybody, I'm only pinching you so you don't pinch anybody else. But it was quite exciting, and as you know, we Bahamians are very easygoing people. We're not boisterous. We take everything. Sometimes you wonder if they're listening, but they are listening because they're able to repeat things long after what was said had been said. But around 11 o'clock, we had a message from Mr. Whitfield to say that he's going upstairs in the House of Assembly to let Mr. Pindling know that the people are getting too close for comfort to move now. And sometime after that, I don't know whether it was about 10, 12 minutes or what, we heard this shout in Bay Street, in Rawson Square, actually, by Queen Victoria's statue. We couldn't see anything. We were only able to hear because there were so many people. And where we were stuck by this western door, and every time I drive Bay Street, I see western door kept me away from that real action. But it was quite an exciting time, and Bahamians like excitement.
We love it.
Whether they understand it or not, so if they say it's all right, yeah, let's go for it. But there was one time when the then magistrate of the Magistrates Court in Bank Lane was about to read the Riot Act to the people. Move from Bay Street or get yourselves arrested. And there was a union leader by the name of Cadwell and Brista who surged past the crowd and headed for that magistrate, shouting at him, telling me, "You ain't reading that in here today." And because if that had happened, all hell would have broken loose. But we were able to hold him back. Because, I mean, we're here fighting for our the vote is best for us as the majority of the people in the country. You're trying to read the Riot Act to tell us we can't in your own country.
Crazy.
Crazy. Yeah. But other than that, things went very smooth. It was such an exciting time. Women voted in 1962 and we gained the majority of the votes, but we lost. And that set trouble in the parliamentarians. I mean, this has to stop. I mean, you know, like we preached and prayed for the women, and next thing we know, they got the seats and we got the votes. That is what started the thing. That's what pushed it along.
And you said this was the best kept secret. So you didn't know it. You knew that something was going to happen.
Yeah, but you didn't
know
exactly
what exactly was going to happen.
And that, who would have thought of that? I was told that at the meeting, the then Mr. Pindling asked who was going to throw the mace out. And everyone, they said, looked from one to the other and said, you. It gave him a jolt. And I think they said after he composed himself, he agreed, yeah, well, as the leader, I guess a lot has fallen to me, you know, and, but that was...
So tell me something, what went through your mind hours after this? You told us it was a peaceful protest.
Just suppose something had gone wrong. Look at the people that would have gotten hurt. It would have been a stampede.
And obviously your husband was a leader, because you talked to us about how he was able to lead the people peacefully away after. I mean, what was that like, seeing him in that moment?
But your heart pounding, praying that, oh Lord, don't let anything happen, because it would have only taken a spark. And myself and Beryl Hannah, we stayed behind on Parliament Street until the crowd would have left to hear what the other side were having to say, and now we were being ridiculed, and we don't know what we're doing, and we can't run our own homes, and we talk about running House of Assembly and all that. All sorts of things were said to discourage, but we were determined to follow the leaders wherever they said to go, do whatever they said to do to help to get the job done. And the women supported 110%.
Yeah, because I was going to say, obviously, you were the encouragement as well to keep the men going. Because I would imagine that would have been very difficult at that time to stand up to the power and say, hey, no, this is my country. This what you're doing is not right. It's not fair.
But when they said you can't run your own home and you won't run house, well, that said one else, you know. You don't speak to us like that. You know, we were born here, we land just like their land, and we want our equal rights.
And despite how everything went peacefully, were there any fears of backlash or consequences for the action?
No. More fears of a backlash was during the struggle for independence. Pindling was always at the Colonial Office in London, preaching the case, he and Sir Milo Butler, for the majority of the Bahamian people. And I look back now and trying to remember, I can't remember the things that was said, but the cause, why are they doing this? It's now materializing with my eyes wide open when I saw our little young Neely boy in Jamaica representing.
Egan Neely.
So this is what it's all about. Creating young Bahamians, strong, independent, and educated.
Yes.
Because as you know, education was the key. That was Eddie Hannah's baby. And I'm materialing in front of my very eyes, Clarence Bain used to say. So this is what the teachings and the preachings and the sacrifices, and there have been some sacrifices. You have no idea.
So when you look at today's generation, especially the young Bahamians, do you think that they might misunderstand or overlook a lot that happened in that era?
Yeah. We're not telling them, and it's a disservice for the young children, because they should not be allowed to think that the Bahamas was always like it is today.
Diet-friendly special.
Here at Immigration Care Service, you can trust us, especially if you have experienced issues or problems with the U.S. immigration at the borders. We'll do our best to provide options and solutions to immigration roadblocks, so travelers can continue visiting the U.S. and residents can continue living their lives in the U.S. without worries. The best part? Our services are affordable and accessible. Take the mystery, confusion, and fear out of your immigration concerns. Contact Immigration Care Service today.
During part two of Dame Marguerite's interview, she reflects on a better Bahamas.
And here it is that we come to want something better for your people, because it's out there for you, but we have to work at it to get it. But we have to do it in a gentle way, a peaceful way, and continue to preach love, because in those early days, one did not move without the other. I could vouch for that, because we had to check, see what you're doing tomorrow. You going that way, I'm going this way. Where will we meet? And then we report to the leadership, and they, of course, we had to get things done.
So what was Sir Lyndon like at that time? How was he at home? Was he calm, focused?
Too calm.
Did he have a lot of pressure or weight on him?
If he had it, Mom, he never showed it. He never brought it home.
And that was a lot to bear. Like you mentioned, the fact of what happened after women voted. So it seemed one fight after the other, right? So how did you stay motivated, and how did you keep the leader motivated?
Because he was. If he had brought a sad face home or a complaint or something, all hell would have broken loose, I tell you that. But Sir Lyndon only wanted to have a good meal. If he wants to come home for lunch every day, as you probably been heard that he came home for lunch every day, suck his snapper head, chewed up his crab body, a Bahamian meal every day, every day, every day. So much so he brought friends and didn't let me know he bring in company. Sometimes we didn't have enough to share, but anyhow, but we made it. He never brought his problems home.
So love and unity.
And that is what kept me going. Because let me tell you something now, if he had shown 1 ounce of anything,
it might have been a different kind of fight.
I can tell you that. Because the women were always out there waiting for the word. And I wasn't too far away with it.
How important was your faith to you throughout all of these many years, going through so much changes as the country was evolving? Obviously, that played a critical role.
With the prayers of the Baptist women, leading by the women out of Bethel Baptist Church. They prayed to the mercy seat. And that is what took us through, with our faith in God and faith in our people.
How did politics impact your personal and family life in those early years?
Many times he promised the children he would take them, spend the weekend with them and all. Something he couldn't make it, apologized. They cried. They said he'll make it up. And I want you to know, as soon as he was able to make it up, there was a boat available to sail them down to Kemps Bay. It was only because he wanted to sleep. That's why he chatted about they could do what they like, but just leave me alone so that I could get some sleep.
Wow.
And so he would sail down to Kemps Bay and rest, get a good night's sleep, eat up. Listen, it was fun on the family. You wouldn't have known that was the Prime Minister, because he was fun-loving, likable, easygoing, kind.
Now, you mentioned the bombing in Abaco. That obviously was a fearful event. But did you fear for his safety or your own?
Yes. Yes. I said, my children can grow without a father. We had no... He was always away. Fortunately, I had some ladies' friends who would come and spend the weekend with me. They'd come and cook and serve tea and all that to sort of keep me occupied, you know. And he would be in touch with the home every so often to let us know everything is going well, you know. It wasn't easy.
So if Sir Lyndon were here today, how do you think he would view the Bahamas as it stands now?
Disappointing. and our young people, because he believed in the young people, because they're the future leaders of tomorrow.
Yes.
And that they're not going to school. We had no schools. I used to teach down in South Andrews under the big almond tree, the little ones, teaching them ABC on a blackboard with chalk. And A.D. Hanna's dream was to educate the Bahamas. That's what a country is, that's what a government is supposed to educate your people so they can stand up and think for themselves.
Yes.
But something went wrong with our education system. When you guys see children on the road at 9 o'clock, little babies, what are they?
Or later. Where are you going? Where are you going?
Why aren't you in school? What happens to truant officers? And you know, I'm a very political person. When Pindling wanted to introduce that National Youth Service, they said, "Let put each other in there. Michelle and Leslie and Obi make them." Now today, here we are.
So tell me then, you talked about the highs, you talked about the hardships, you talked about the history, because there's so much. What are you most proud of?
And if they can't see anything else, they can see National Insurance, which is a great help to them. And for that, I am grateful. I'm sorry we haven't been able to put together National Youth Service because it's badly needed. Get some guts and stand up and do it.
Well, Dame Marguerite, I want to say a special thank you for allowing us into your home and sharing with us the moments that were Black Tuesday and that created the Bahamas that we see today. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and chatting with me today.